Hey guys, I just want to give you an update on the inspection. So there's some good news and bad news. Just a reminder, this is a 4K system that I built on my own. This is a 2K array on the right here and another 2K array on the left, using different type of panels, 250 watt and 350 watt, 345. And this is the update. So I decided to split the inspection into two parts. The first part would be to get it as an off-grid system, just in case I'm not going to pass the grid tie part. At least I'll have the ability to still use it as an off-grid. And for that, the requirement was to do a couple of changes. Let me show you. The first change was to basically run a ground from each one of the panels all the way to the ground. So there's a 6-foot metal here in the ground, and it's wired to each one of the panels in the same way on the other panel, on the other array, sorry. Each one is grounded and goes all the way to the ground. It is interesting to me because everything here is metal. The pole itself is metal. This beam is metal. Everything that is connected to each one of the panels is metal, yet I need to ground it. Either way, I grounded it. This is one thing. The second thing that was required when I initially did the switches, the off and on switches for the grid, those two, I did not have those sleeves, and that would not pass inspection. So I had to cut this, put those sleeves, and that was the requirement. So the other requirement for the inspection was to enclose the batteries. As you can see, I have a big wood case and all the batteries are inside. Just a reminder, those are Chevy Volt batteries. I have roughly 800 amp hour of 24 volt batteries, slightly more because I did add one more cell. Those are 300 LG batteries that are adding 3.7 volt nominal, which works much better with the MPP solar, and give me a range between 23 volts and 29.2. I can actually go slightly lower than 23, but I have no need to do so. So those were the requirement to get it off-grid. And I passed the off-grid. I am allowed by my town to basically use it internally in the house and power whatever I want to power outside of the grid. And what I'm powering basically is my car, and that works for the last 11,000 miles or so. I did not use any electricity aside from trips that I stop somewhere and I need to do a fast DC charging. I did not need to charge from the grid, so it all works perfectly. The second thing in the equation was to get those MPP solar grid tie abilities functioning, and for that you can connect those to the grid. So this is a 1450 or 50 amp AC split phase 240 volt that goes into my main panel. And the idea was to connect that to the MPP solars. And the way it works is that if you have full batteries and there's sun outside and you have no consumption, instead of just dropping the power right on the floor, it will send it to the grid. In order to do that, I had different requirements. The is to have a shut-off switch for PV. Basically, this will disconnect the system from the AC that is connected to the grid. So if a technician comes outside to work on something, they can just come, shut this off, and basically my system is off grid and has no ability to connect to the grid. That was the deal. And also to have stickers that will basically say which lines are PV lines. So you can see that line here has a sticker PV line and goes all the way to where it's actually connected to the grid, including the switches themselves. That was the requirement. And then when the inspector showed up, all decided to change his mind and he had different requirements. He no longer wanted the batteries in the enclosure that I built. He wanted a UL certified enclosure. I cannot find this kind of enclosure at this size. Somebody can make this. I investigated, and it will cost about $3,000 or $2,500. That's silly. I will never be able to push power, access power to the grid to recover that expense. So I pretty much gave up the idea to feed the grid. It's a shame. I am dropping every once in a while power that I can't use. But there's going to be something in the future that I'm thinking about to resolve that problem. So all in all, I'm happy. The system is certified or passed inspection. I can function with it to charge my car or anything that I want outside of the grid. I'm very happy, and I'm using it. Other questions that people usually ask is about BMS or not BMS. I definitely recommend to monitor the batteries, but you don't need to have a BMS to do so, or anything that will actively not monitor but modify the voltage of the batteries. The reason I'm saying it is this: I have 2 sets of batteries, or 4 batteries with a BMS. I have 2 that don't have a BMS. For the last 6 to 10 months, depending on which battery, because I edit them in different times, I have really no difference in the voltage. I'll try to show you this battery. There's a difference of 56 millivolt between the cells. That's pretty cool for a battery that is about 7 years old. This is 2011 Chevy Volt. This is the same. I do every week or so go with a multimeter with 1/1000th of a difference, or 1 millivolt difference, go over all the batteries and check. I haven't found any difference between the batteries that have BMS, batteries that don't have BMS. It seems like the system is just equalizing itself, no problem. I usually don't have it connected even. I see no reason to. I'll just, when I need to, I'll just connect it and check. So that's one thing. Of course, monitor your batteries, but you don't necessarily need to have an expensive BMS to do the work. I do monitor also for the temperature. This is a temperature meter, and it's connected to the laptop. I live in New England, so the highest temperatures that I recorded, even during charging my car, which will take about 4 kilowatt from the batteries for hours, for like 4 or 5 hours, including the solar itself. I'm not getting more than 90, 92 degrees Fahrenheit, so the batteries don't get hot. I think they can handle a lot more than what I'm trying to get out of them. And the last thing is about the 1S battery that I created, the 300 batteries in parallel. It is a higher voltage than the other, typically 0.2 volt. I think that it has more capacity compared to the other batteries, compared to each one of the S's or one of the cells in the other batteries. So that's not a bad thing. It just means that when I'm losing power on the batteries, this battery will stay with higher voltage, meaning that if I had a little bit more power on the other batteries, I could have run a little bit longer, but that's okay. It also allows me to maybe expand the system in the future and add 1 more of those Chevy Volt batteries, and still don't need to replace the LG 1 cell 300 batteries, because it has a little bit more capacity, and also it's for longevity. For the long run, it will work better, because when those batteries are going to get old, maybe now they're going to equalize themselves to the Chevy Volt batteries. That's it.